Become a wealth creator today. Text MONEY to 800-454-1184. That's MONEY to 800-454-1184.
Retiring is challenging enough already. But if you're about to retire, now you face the possibility of trying to do so during a global economic meltdown. So that sounds a little intimidating. That's why Eric is here today to walk us all through it. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio. Here's the phone number we want you to have for our show today, 800-454-1184. You may call that number. You can even text if you want, and you can reach them that way for a complimentary appointment. Or you can find us online anytime at wealthcreatorradio.com. That's wealthcreatorradio.com. And Eric, hello to you.
Hey, Luann. Yeah, it's interesting time with a lot of downward pressure, a lot of layoffs, especially from the tech sector, which, you've heard also like the housing market's down 15%. Well, all these stats you got to watch out for because the housing market's actually in December was up 19% from 2019. But it was down 15% from 2021.
Oh, wow.
Right? So is that good or bad? Well, I guess it depends on when you bought. But if you own the house before 2019, you're still doing great. It's just you weren't doing as great as crazy prices were. And, same with a lot of the tech jobs. A lot of the tech jobs overhired and stuff. So, everything about all the good news and bad news, you always hear the bad news, but people don't always necessarily tie it back to, oh, well, let's go a little farther out and see how this really plans. So, again, it's just more about thought process about how to react to these stuff and should you react and, really how does it affect you? And that's really what we're going to try to focus on is, how does any of this stuff affect you and what should you do?
Right. And, as I mentioned, a sobering outlook on the global economy this past week here with the 2023 World Economic Forum. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres actually said, our outlook is pretty bleak.
Our world is plagued by a perfect storm on a number of fronts. Start with the short term, a global economic crisis. The outlook, as we all know, is bleak. Many parts of the world face recession, and the entire world faces a slowdown.
So, Eric, he says we need to look these challenges just squarely in the eye. There's no sugarcoating the issue. Here he is again.
We need cooperation, yet we face fragmentation. And I'm not here to sugarcoat the scale of that challenge or the sorry state of our world. We can't confront problems unless we look them squarely in the eye. And we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane.
Category 5 hurricane? Not too good, huh?
No, definitely not. So, yeah, it's one of these things where, everything ebbs and flows, right? And, and so this is just one of those time frames. Some of the biggest companies in the world are actually results of recessions. They did great during them. Some companies go away, right? Some companies have issues, but a lot of them double down and do great. So, it's not this or that, is going to happen type of thing. It's, how's it going to affect you, right? How's it going to affect your retirement? Probably the bigger issue is when do you need this money, right? If you're in your 20s or 30s and you're talking about money you need for retirement, buy now. Just invest more, right? Yeah. It's going to be great in 5 or 10 or 20 years from now. So who cares? But for the people who are, within 5 or 10 years of retirement or just retired, this is going to affect you more. And so then that's when we have to really be thinking about this more.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because we've got to preserve our retirement savings, of course, whenever there's a threat of a major economic downturn. But like you said, it ebbs and flows. It's going to happen during retirement. It's just unfortunate for the people who are retiring right now, right?
Yeah, well, one of the best things about the inflation and the rate increases from the Fed is some guaranteed what I call foundational products have been they're just wonderful. They're the highest rates we've pretty much ever seen. And there's right now products out there where, they can guarantee your principal, but they'll pay anywhere, up to 10 or even more, some up to 13% on the S&P 500. So in other words, if the market goes up, you get that interest rate. If it goes down, you don't lose a dime. There's no annual fees or cost of those. You just kind of have to have your money there for a little while. But wow, there's some great products out there that people just aren't paying attention to, I think. And, that's one of the things that you have to be looking at is, okay, what was the bad side? Well, mortgages are more expensive, right? Inflation also caused food and all these other things to go up more. But look, you can also make a ton more money with guarantees than you ever used to be able to do that before. So, if you're comparing products right now to January of 2022, light years difference in terms of benefits and options out there. So, if you want to take some of that money and say, hey, I don't know how these things are going to go. I'm a little nervous about how ups and downs are going to do. There are some great options out there now. You just have to take advantage of them. So, if you want to set up a 15 to 30-minute phone call, just talk real fast, find out what concerns you have. There's no cost, no obligation or anything like that. So, if you want to take advantage of that, all you have to do is text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? It sounds like there's kind of a bright spot in the middle of all this bleakness that they were talking about last week. So that would be wonderful. Pay attention, and if you're not quite sure about everything, go in and see Eric and his team. Things aren't as bad as they seem. So, Eric, for people, let's say, who aren't expecting to retire this year, how do they make sure that they're prepared if the what if happens, if they're forced out of the workforce earlier than planned?
Yeah, well, just actually I was meeting with somebody who had a not layoff, but it was a voluntary one, and she was debating whether or not she should take it or not. Obviously, those are a little bit easier decisions, right? When you still have the option.
Yeah.
So you want to see, does it make sense to do? Should you take that money? How's that timeline work? Obviously, if you're just fully laid off, first of all, everybody should have 6 months of expenses, sitting there in savings account, ideally on an online savings account. Please do not use bank savings accounts. Those are horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're not getting at least 3%, you need to change where you're putting your money. But if you want to have some backup money, but a lot of times, you can look at that, and I mean that's actually how what happened to both my parents. They both got laid off in the .com crash, and we were able to do the numbers and figure it out, and said, hey, they can actually be retired now, and they can enjoy life, and do it then. So what you need to do is you need to have an income plan. You need to be able to see how does that money last. Is it going to be there long enough for you? Then you have to see where your investments are. Can they put off some guaranteed lifetime income for you? Is there some money that's guaranteed? Is there some steady income money that's going to be paying more dividends and not super volatile with the market? And, if you have those kind of buckets all set up, and then you have to look at the tax ramifications, I mean, those are the three things to be really looking at, as the key up items. Obviously, healthcare, legacy issues are in there too. So, that's what we do here at Heckman Financials. We talk about that blueprint to worry less wealth. And, so those are some of the areas you want to look at is really having that income plan and seeing, am I retired or am I looking for a new job?
Yeah, you always say, Eric, that you help people plan for the worst, but yet you hope for the best. But that way you at least have a plan to deal with everything, like when we have a recession or a down market. And then that can keep us from derailing our retirement plans, right?
No, exactly. So, if you've got a plan, it's easy to know if you're off course or on course. And, if the course got changed for you, right, maybe by force, can you still be good? Is things going to still be okay or not? And, once you know that, then you can kind of then start figure out some options, some decisions, and, really figure out, where things are at. But I don't know a single economist, anybody out there that's saying anything positive about this year or even the next maybe couple years. I think it'll be maybe hopefully towards the end of this year, things will start improving more. But, it's going to be mostly a sideways market this year. And, so that is one of those things where if you're pretty close to retirement or in retirement, you want to make sure you've got some stuff that's making some money, some stuff that's protected, and, have some of that foundational money, have some of that steady income, and not just 100% market money. Because if the market's not doing good and 100% of your money's there, that's not so good. Again, if that's something you want to take advantage of, we can help you build that blueprint to worry less wealth. But we start there again with a no cost, no obligation phone call, and same with the blueprint. We'll do that. If it makes sense for us to do that, we'll go through that process. Again, no cost, no obligation, and all you have to do is text the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
More valuable information coming your way with Eric Heckman and Wealth Creator Radio.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial, right here in the Silicon Valley area, helping retirees just like you have remarkable retirements. He's been doing this for the past 30 years, and he would love to guide you as well. Now, I want to bring this up. You know this, Eric. You've been doing this for so long. Women statistically outlive men by about 6 years. So a lot of wives are going to outlive their husbands in retirement, meaning a lot of them will, be suddenly taking over their own finances, maybe for their first time ever. That can be confusing and very, very scary, right?
Oh, certainly. I mean, we've had to deal with it for several times a year, typically, that we have this happen. And I mean, at tax time, we had, one person whose husband was, on the beginning signs of dementia and stuff. And so she had to all of a sudden, figure out where all their tax documents were. But we had another client where her husband had brain tumor type thing. And, he was kind of coming back and he was getting healthier, but he always did the taxes, and we just helped her figure out how to, file extension for her, and told her, well, here, he really wanted to still do it, but he couldn't always remember what day it was. His short-term memory was gone, so his long-term was still good. But how can you do taxes, if you don't remember all those things, right? So, and then we've had another client that literally her husband, if she needed money, her husband would bring some cash home from the ATM. She had never used an ATM.
Oh, dear.
I mean, this isn't 10 or 20 years ago. No. This was in the 2020s. She had never used an ATM. She didn't know how to check her bank balance other than calling the bank or walking into the bank. She barely checked emails. Well, you can't even set up online access to see your bank balance on an app unless you have an email, right? So we had to walk her through that. Luckily my team was able to help her, set all that stuff up. But yeah, there's a lot of women who don't really know what necessarily is going on. Or sometimes there's also some husbands out there that have really complicated situations where they're doing a lot of trading and other stuff. And it's just not something that, if somebody doesn't care about that stuff, they're never going to be able to implement that. And it's not sustainable in retirement if they're gone.
Let's start with some of the differences that you've noticed between how men and women approach retirement planning. Tell us what things men tend to be most concerned about.
Well, the guys, usually it's all about return, right? How much can I earn? How, points on the scoreboard, right? So how could I get the high score and put my initials on it, right? So that's really what they're kind of more focused on. And sometimes it works and sometimes it blows up fantastically. And so, if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, it's really ugly. And so, that's the hard part is that's probably okay during accumulation. It just isn't very useful and isn't a very good thing to do when you're in distribution mode, not for at least all your money, because you got to make sure there's some always there.
So again, women statistically outlive men by 6 years. Eric, how does that fact come into play during retirement planning?
Well, a lot of times, I'll talk with somebody, and then maybe the husband who calls me up and we do that, that 15, 30-minute phone call, find out what their situation is, and they want to go through the planning, and they go, oh, my wife doesn't really care about this. Well, if I don't care if that's correct or not, she needs to care, right? You need to care. I mean, you need to make sure, what's going on and what's happening here. And, it's kind of like, well, I don't care. I just want to go on a vacation. Well, if your vacation was to Antarctica and you wanted to go to the beach, I mean, you do want to at least know what's going on in the general sense. And more importantly, for this exact fact, like what you said, is that 6-year difference in age, lifespan, if they're going to end up, inheriting this money and running this portfolio that they've never done in their entire life, they need to at least know where things are. They need to at least know, what the heck's going on, right?
Yeah.
and if they don't know that, I mean, it can be very, very tough and very challenging. And sadly, too, they could be very easily manipulated and taken advantage of because, people will say, hey, here, just put all this money in here and I'll make this huge commission. And, they're not going to go to a fiduciary based advisor. They're going to go to somebody who just sells them stuff. Usually maybe it's the bank or, the local broker or somebody, but somebody's going to talk to them about something and get them just to dump the money in. And then they're going to find out it's a really bad situation and it's the most expensive thing and probably not necessarily what they needed. So, again, having that plan, having that roadmap, if something happens and, along life and life does happen, right? You're on a trip and maybe your car breaks down, maybe you have a flat tire or whatever. Same thing with life, right? If you lose a spouse, you're going to still go on living, but now what? And how do you change that? Well, if you don't know what's going on, it's going to be really tough. So that's why having a plan is so critical. What we're here at Heckman Financial is really just to guide you down that path and say, here's how you can make sure your money's going to last for the rest of your life. Here's your income plan so we know it's going to be good with and without each of you there. Because what happens is when one person dies, you lose that Social Security check, right? There's other things come into play. Then look at the investments. Are they all at risk or are there some guaranteed stuff? Is there some steady income money and not just all market money? We also want to look at the taxes. How's the tax effects going to be now in the future? And also when you're single, if all of a sudden you're widowed, guess what? The tax brackets all get cut in half, but your tax is going to go up because you're in a higher bracket now. And then lastly, look at the healthcare issues. Who's going to take care of whom? And then legacy. Who's going to make sure that money goes to your loved ones after you guys are both gone. So again, that's what we do here at Heckman Financial. We create that blueprint to worry less wealth so you can worry about having fun and enjoying life and not have to worry about your money. So if that's something you want to take advantage of and find out a little bit more, set up a call for us just to find out what's going on in your situation. 800-454-1184. You can leave a message or text the word visit to 800-454-1184 or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And thank you so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, founder at Heckman Financial. He is a certified financial planner. They're right here in the Silicon Valley area, and he's been doing this for over 30 years. He has an awesome team. So, all right, let's talk about how you do work with couples to help ensure that their income is going to continue even if something does happen to one of them.
Yeah, so lots of times people say, hey, I need whatever the number is, let's say $7,000 a month, and maybe between both Social Security checks you're getting, I don't know, say $5,000. So you just need to make up the extra $2,000, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what that doesn't count is if somebody passes away, that Social Security check might get cut in half. And now all of a sudden you don't need $2,000, maybe you need $4,000 a month. And, if that happens, how are you going to make sure that money's there? Is it going to be all based on stock market returns and ups and downs of the market and what Wall Street wants you to be in and have all that risk? Or is it going to be something that more like a pension, something where you have some money coming in, something that's going to be there, something that's going to be steady? And that's what I find a lot of people don't have is, the 401ks when they took over and squished out everybody else, the Vanguards, the Fidelities, and all these big brokerage firms of the world now run how we invest in our 401ks, and it's 100% market-based. But if you look at a pension company, pension companies don't invest that way. They don't have 100% of their money in stocks and bonds. They have stuff that pays them good, steady income that's guaranteed. They've got different pots of money, and that's what everybody else needs too, is they need to have those different pots of money. So that way, when you're retired, you got that money coming in, you've got some steady income, you got maybe some income that's guaranteed for life, that's a joint life payout. So that way, if one of you are gone, it doesn't matter. That check keeps coming in, doesn't drop in value or anything. And so that's really the biggest thing. And so I think really most couples really need to sit down and say, okay, how are we going to have that money last for the rest of our life? How are we going to make sure that this all works? And that's when you have to have that blueprint to worry less wealth. We can help you guide you to having an income plan that makes you know that your money's not going to run out. Make sure your volatility isn't too high, too extreme. Add that foundational, those steady income assets to your market funds. Look at the taxes and say, okay, how do we lower these taxes for the rest of our lives? How are we going to do all these healthcare decisions down the road? And lastly, who's going to get our stuff when we're gone? So, that's the 5 areas of the blueprint to worry less wealth. Again, if that's something you want to set up a time to talk about, find out more, there's no cost, no obligation. All you got to do is either text the word visit or just leave a message at 800-454-1184. Again, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Still a lot more to come with Eric. We'll be right back with more of Wealth Creator Radio. Stick around.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, this is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, president of Heckman Financial, but he's also an author. He wrote the book Worry Less Wealth. And really, it's everything that we talk about on our show. He wanted to open your eyes to all things available so you can have a remarkable retirement. And so he helps us see any warning signs in our own planning before trouble begins. He teaches us to discover how we can worry less, and that's what this show's all about. You can get this book by calling 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184. Get that book complimentary. All right, so today we're talking about some of the unique challenges that women face in preparing for retirement. Eric, GoBankingRates.com has a huge list of financial challenges that women face in retirement. I wanted to get your reaction and have you give us these facts. Tell us what you think about them.
Yeah, there's a couple. The gender pay gap, something that's getting, I think, a little bit better, but not something you can necessarily do about on your own case other than apply for other jobs.
Yeah.
Lack of financial confidence is definitely a big one. A lot of times women just don't know what's going on, or they don't take charge of it, or don't want to learn about it, but they do worry about it. And so, it's one of those things where you do have to definitely get some education about. Obviously, women live longer than men, so that's going to be a big factor because they're going to be the ones that are going to be ultimately running the situation and making sure that money lasts. And often they're the caregivers, so they're going to take off time for either loved ones or take care of the spouse. And they may have spent a lot of money to help their spouse that's ill, and then what happens to them? Because if you spend $300,000 or $400,000 on your ill spouse, that's great. You're able to do that, but are you able to still stay retired? After that, and then. Often what they also call gray divorce, which has been a huge thing. People in their 50s or 60s divorcing, and that can be a huge cost item because all of a sudden you have to start all over and get these things reset up, and especially with the housing markets going up higher and getting more expensive over time. If you're trying to buy a new place and start over again, it can be really tough. And so I think women really need to be paying attention to this and not defer these responsibilities to somebody else, but make sure they're taking care of themselves.
The Department of Labor says 58%. So we're talking, almost 60% of long-term caregivers are female. And if someone is a caregiver, a female is a caregiver for a family member or loved one, then you're probably having to cut back on your job, maybe less ability to save. I got to tell you, Eric, this very thing happened with my best friend. She just lost her husband, who aged 70. And so for a year, they still paid her, thankfully, but she was caring for her husband, and then they had some issues happen with the house. So, man, she's worried now about how she's going to do. She's not ready to retire, but once, she gets there, I think she's going to have to work for a long time. So, tell us how someone can be in that position and kind of try to catch back up with their savings. How do you help people like that?
Yeah, no, it can be very, very tough. I had a situation with a client who was, she was in sales, both her parents were ill, and she took off several years and basically made almost nothing. Had to go into her own retirement funds to get by, and then when they passed away, half the money went to her brother, who'd never helped the parents at all. And and he'd had all his retirement savings intact and all this stuff, right? So it can be definitely tough. I mean, it's one of those things where you just have to start putting money away, right? You have to have a plan. You have to start funding as much as you can, figure out, okay, is there cheaper ways to live? Is there, can you rent out a room in your house to somebody to make some extra money? All sorts of things where you may have to come up with just to get back into into a safe spot that that's going to be sustainable for retirement. And one of the things that we have here at Heckman Financial is we have a great checklist that people can go through to see where am I at? Am I in a good spot? And I would really urge women out there to don't ask your spouse about this. Don't ask your husband about this, but you ask, you do the checklist on your own, and then maybe have him do it separately, but and then see if you guys both agree. But having this checklist is a great way to kind of go through and say, okay, I did that, I have that. Oops, no, I haven't done that. Oops, no, I haven't done. And then at least it's kind of like when you're going to shopping. Oh, I forgot, I haven't picked up that. I haven't picked up that. It's a lot better when you know what you need to do versus you're just trying to remember. And so, if you want to get a copy of that checklist, we can send you a download link. All you have to do is text the word checklist to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word checklist, 800-454-1184, or you can download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Today, we're talking about retirement challenges for women. About 40% of women investors identify as beginners, Eric. So I think a lot of women do lack confidence in their financial knowledge. Tell us some steps they could consider to try to help boost their financial confidence. What would you tell them?
Well, obviously, just learning, right? Anytime you're not confident on something, it's usually education based. It's either your experience or education, right? So if the experience you'll get, sometimes good and sometimes bad.
Yeah.
But at least the education part you can take care of, and that's something that you can do on your own. So just reading some different books out there. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, I have a book, Worry Less Wealth. Those are some stuff that you can do. I wouldn't necessarily watch all the crazy shows about buy this stock, sell this stock, and all that junk. That's more financial entertainment than it is, real advice. But looking, just learning about some of these things, but also just starting to know what's going on. Know your situation, know where you're headed. Again, it's one of these things where once you've figured it out, it's pretty easy. I've been teaching my youngest son how to drive, and it's always fun. I can't believe I've had to do this a third time now. But
I know, that's funny.
And he got mad at me because one time I crossed myself before we started. He goes, "Oh, that's a little mean," and but I just did it for fun to mess with him. But it's one of these things that now you don't even think about driving, right? You almost don't. It's so automatic. And same thing here. If you know about the finances, you know that you're on a path, you know that you have a direction, then it's fine. But the scary part is when you don't know. So knowing that, getting that education, I think is critical.
Yeah, so true. I do agree with you. So the Department of Labor says that women age 65 or older are more likely than men to live below the poverty level. So Eric, these are startling statistics. What's your message for women preparing for retirement?
Got to take some charge, right? Got to know what's going on and, really figure out, do you have a budget? How are you going to make sure that money lasts? How are you going to look at the risks, stock market volatility, inflation, taxes, healthcare costs? How are you going to generate income? I mean, it's one thing just to have that money sitting there, but if it's just in a mutual fund, does it actually pay you anything? Does it come out? Is there, dividends and interest coming out? You have to look at all these things of how to keep that standard of living and how to make sure you're keeping up with inflation, keeping up with taxes and all those fun issues that maybe you didn't want to deal with, right? So, so that's one of the things we've built here at Heckman Financial is that blueprint to worry less wealth. And this blueprint really, what it does is it first and foremost takes you through that process of, well, what is your income? Will that money last? If it's going to run out, is it going to run out at 75 or 95? There's a big difference between those two, right? And, make sure you're on at least the right course for income. And then how are you invested? Is it a lot of risk? Is it a lot of volatility? How's that going to play out? Or do you have some foundational money? Do you have some stuff that's steady income besides just the market funds that are in a 401k? And then look at taxes now and along the way. Look at healthcare, legacy, all these different issues. And again, that's the blueprint to worry less wealth. It's something that we're offering free, no cost. If you want to set up just a 15 to 30 minute phone call, find out about your situation, and then we can actually build out that plan for you. So you just give us a call. All you have to do is text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Take advantage of the special offer from Eric and his team. Get some help with your retirement planning. We are not done yet. We'll be right back with more of Wealth Creator Radio.
Become a wealth creator today. Text MONEY to 800-454-1184. That's MONEY to 800-454-1184.
Sounds like the mailman's here.
It's time to answer questions from the Heckman Financial Services Mailbag.
Hi, we're so glad to have you join us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. He is a well-known speaker and author. He can provide you with some guidance to get you to and through retirement with worry less wealth. That is his goal for you. When you like to worry less, well, that's what this show is all about. Eric explains. Now, right now is a time, Eric, where I'm going to read some questions for you. Okay, we're going to dig into your Wealth Creator Radio mailbag, and then you're going to give us some answers. So these are from retirees. Are you ready for this?
Yep, let's go for it.
You're always ready. Okay. I'm planning on retiring in 3 or 4 years, and I'm thinking really hard about relocating. What are some things to consider as I'm trying to narrow down my options for where to move?
Well, probably the biggest one is, what are you going to do with your house? Are you going to sell it? You get the $500,000 if you're married, or $250 capital gain exclusion for single. Depending on how long you live there, for a lot of people in the Bay Area, they're way over that, so that you may have a pretty big taxable hit. So that's one thing to be thinking about. One benefit, if you're staying in California, the new Prop 19 allows you to move your property tax basis from way back when to any other place in the state, so that can make it nicer if you're trying to move to the foothills or something. Obviously, if you're going to move to a tax-free state like Texas, Nevada, Washington, something like that, then that does play into a lot of things about your financial plan, because you're deferring California tax and then not having to pay it when you take it out. So that can be a big one. And then also, are you going to just rent the house? Are you going to rent where you're going to go to? There's lots of different options. So I would say just kind of get some pros and cons. I mean, one of the interesting things, actually, my neighbor did this. When they sold their house, they booked 5 one-month Airbnbs in different parts of the country. And so they just wanted to figure out where they wanted to live. 2 of them were locations where their kids are living, their adult children. But some weren't. And so, they just wanted to kind of get a feel for it. And I think it's actually almost always a better option if you can to, do a short-term rental or do something for a while before you get to know that neighborhood, because you may think this one area, this one town you want to move to is good, but then once you live there a little bit, you find out the traffic's bad or other things. And so I think it's really good if you can to just, initially rent, just check it out, and then also try to spend some time in all seasons.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, especially if you're leaving the Bay Area where, we complain when it, the 1 or 2 days a year it hits freezing levels and stuff, and the rare days it hits 100. So, if you're going someplace where it's snowing and ice storms, and, I've seen a lot of clients move to other places, and, they're dealing with a lot of weather.
We're digging into Eric's Wealth Creator Radio mailbag. And here's another one. I like how my money has been performing in the markets, but I am starting to get a little bit worried about the risk that I'm taking. Now, this is my life savings. So what are some moves I should make with my money, Eric?
Yeah, so that's one of the critical things is I think people way too much depend on the stock market to always be good. And we know there's .com crashes. We know there's 08 crashes, COVID crashes, right? All these things. And so, you cannot depend 100% on the stock markets. So you want to have some foundational money, some money that can't go away, some money that's guaranteed. You want to have some money that's guaranteed ideally for the rest of your lifetime. And you also want to have some steady income in addition to the market money. So yeah, that'd be one of the things I would definitely recommend is start looking at those two other areas. Again, that's something we help with all of our clients here do is diversify that money out and make sure that you've got a plan that works in all conditions, all market conditions, because that's the only plan that you want.
Right, exactly. And so take us through your blueprint to worryless wealth, which is what you're offering today.
Yeah, so the blueprint basically covers the 5 critical areas: having an income plan, a written income plan that takes into account taxes, inflation, everything. Investment plan, how are those dollars set up? Are they in foundational, steady income, market money? Look at the taxes. When should you convert? When should you not? When should you be put money into what account? When should you take money out of which account? Look at the healthcare issues along the way. If you're retiring pre-65, post-65, long-term care. And then even legacy. Who's going to get your stuff at the end? What assets are better to leave behind? And all those types of things. So, that's one of the things that we've been doing here for a long time at Heckman Financial is creating that blueprint to worry less wealth. And, again, that's something we can create for you. There's no cost, no obligation. All you do is set up a 15 to 30-minute phone call. We'll talk about what's your situation, what concerns you have. And then from there, we can kind of build out that blueprint that you have already that you just don't know. And we'll tell you what's working and what areas you might have some issues in. And then we can figure out ways to address them. So, again, if you want to take advantage of that, all you have to do is set up that phone call. You can text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Let Eric and his team at Heckman Financial help guide you to help you lay out your income for the rest of your life. You might be retired for 20, 30, maybe even 40 years, and he and his team are here to guide you. Here's another question, and this one has to do with Social Security, Eric. We're reaching into Eric's Wealth Creator Radio email bag, and here's one here. Could Social Security really keep up with the cost of living?
Supposedly the government says it will.
Yeah.
There was that huge increase for 2022 for inflation, but there's some years where there's been no increases and other ones where there have been in between. So, you can kind of count on anywhere from 1% to 3%, average increases, but Social Security is not that much money to start off with. I mean, for most people, that's not going to be a successful retirement if that's all you have. And so it's going to help. It's definitely not a bad thing, right? But it is something that you can't rely on Social Security because Social Security is not going to be enough to have any sort of meaningful retirement or existence, I guess I would call it. So, you definitely have to have other assets that are, outpacing that and keeping up with inflation.
That worries me about baby boomers. That's my generation, my peers. And, I know, several years ago, you and I were always talking about how people just haven't saved enough. What are you seeing mostly lately on people my age who are getting ready to retire?
Well, obviously, most of the clients that people come to me, they have done some savings,
Okay.
so they have some built up, and they're trying to figure out, some obviously have done very well, some not as well, and so it's like, okay, well, where do you want to, how do you want to change stuff? Do you want to retire here, or you want to relocate, or do you want to work a few more years? But that's the beauty of our income plan is we can figure that out ahead of time, then make those decisions with some knowledge. It's a lot worse when you're retired, then you're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to live?
Yeah.
And, oh, shoot, I should have not retired for another couple of years.
Right.
So,
yeah. There you go.
You don't want to have that. Yeah. So you want to plan that ahead for sure.
Make sure you have a plan for your income. Yeah. Okay. Here's probably the last question I can get in for today. We're reaching into Eric's Wealth Creator Radio mailbag. This one is asking, can you explain what a qualified charitable distribution is? I've read a little bit about it. I'm still not sure exactly what it is and what the benefits are.
So a qualified charitable distribution, QCD. So this is basically for people who have that required minimum distribution. So, if you're hitting 72, the goofy thing about this law is when they changed it to 72, they did allow you to still donate your money at 70 and a half. I don't know who's going to do that really, because you don't have to take the money out. So why would you donate it unless you're being overly generous? But, the reality for most people when they're retired is most people can't itemize anymore. With a lot of the eliminations of the deductions and the, getting rid of the exemptions, but having the higher standard deduction, Lots of times people are, when they're retired, they either have a small mortgage or no mortgage, so they can't have that mortgage write-off and other things. So they can't usually get a write-off for charitable donations. So what this does is this says, okay, well, yeah, you got to take out, there's so much money from your, your what we call your required minimum distribution, or RMD, from your retirement accounts. If you want, you can have that sent straight from whoever handles your IRA. So say if it's, Fidelity, for example, go from Fidelity straight to that charity. You don't pay tax on it, but it meets the definition of you taking the money out.
Awesome.
And the cool thing is it kind of barely shows up on your tax return. It shows up there for a second, but comes right off. So it's not income. It's not a write-off, but it's just not income. So say you had to take out $10,000 and instead you donated that. That's not $10,000 of income. That's not, stuff that you have to have a deduction for or anything else like that. You just don't pay the tax. So it's a great way to go. Again, that's one of those things where if you've got a plan, you work in that part of your plan, then it's easy to figure out how to donate that and when to do that. There's also things called donor advised funds that we use for people who have highly appreciated stock. That's a great way to compile all your donations in 1 year. So there's a lot of different ways that you can really get some great tax benefits if you do some planning with not only a financial advisor who knows the financial markets type of stuff and investment products, but really also knows the taxes. So, again, that's something we do here at Heckman Financial. So if you want to sit down with us and set up that blueprint to worry less wealth, where we talk about that, income plan, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, all you have to do is text us the word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
You're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. We'll be right back with the rest of our show.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, this is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Luann Fulmer. Eric is here to give you some really good ideas about retirement planning. And right now, Eric has a wealth success story for us. Always a fun example to listen to what someone else has done and see how things can work out best for retirees. So, Eric, tell us what you have today.
Yeah, well, this is a couple, we'll just call them Dan and Carol. And, they didn't work at any fancy job that had, super high income or anything like that. But, they were always pretty thrifty savers. They were always, maxing out their retirement plans and, putting that money away. And so they just kept plugging away, doing that. A couple times they looked at, should we, get the fancier house and move to the fancier neighborhood? And, they could have done that, but they decided not to. And now what that's happened is, they've actually been able to pay off their mortgage. So,
awesome.
So now they're living free and clear. There's a huge backup asset, as I like to call it, right? Because your house doesn't give you any money per se because you're living in it, right? But if they need that cash, if they need to get some money, they can always downsize or, take a reverse mortgage or something. So there's that big pot of money. But you don't have to have like the big stock options. You don't have to do any of this stuff. But if you just do the basics, so much about life is just doing the simple, easy, basic stuff. They didn't go out and they get the fanciest car every year. They, didn't take super high-end vacations, but they ended up actually having a cabin up in the Sierras and stuff. And again, there's ways to have stuff without having to spend a ton. And, and if you live within your means and you're not doing the, keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, it's amazing that, that that things can easily work out, and they're showing the fruits of their labor, I guess, right? Or whatever you want to call it, that they're starting to enjoy it. And she'll probably stop working pretty soon. She's a little bit younger, but she likes her job. So she's like, well, might as well keep going. But, but again, that's the nice thing. So, a lot of times, especially in Silicon Valley, you hear about all the people who hit it big with some stock or, get lucky and get hired by the right company at the right time. But yeah, it doesn't have to be that. Yeah, you just have to start putting that money away, right? Have that emergency fund first, then start hitting that retirement plan and keep building it up. And, it's weird. It all works out.
Not funny.
but you just got to take the time. It's just like so many things in life. So, again, if you want us to give you a little help and figure out, hey, where am I in that process? Am I getting close to my goals? Am I on track? What's my risk level now that things are changing in the markets and the economy? All that stuff, well, that's easy to do because all we do is we create that blueprint to worry less wealth. That's where we have you worry less about your money and more about having fun and enjoying life because you got a plan. So if you want to take advantage of that, all you have to do is text the word VISIT 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.